Right now, you turned on a tap. Cold, clean water came out in less than a second. You didn't think about it. You didn't have to. You filled your glass, maybe checked your phone, and moved on with your day. But 50,000 years ago, that single moment, finding water, was the only thing that mattered. It was a difference between your ancestors living another day or dying before sunset. And here's the question nobody thinks to ask. How did they actually do it? No maps, no pipes, no satellites. Just a human brain and a dying body walking across an unknown landscape. How did they find water before water found them? For a long time, researchers assumed prehistoric humans simply followed rivers. They assumed our ancestors stayed close to obvious water sources, lakes, coastlines, major streams, and that survival was mostly about luck and geography. But that assumption turned out to be wrong, very wrong, because the archaeological record tells a completely different story. One where early humans weren't just reacting to their environment, they were reading it. Think about this. In 2016, archaeologist Francesco Di Enrico at the University of Bordeaux published findings showing that Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens regularly traveled up to 100 kilometers from known water sources, on purpose, not by accident, not chasing herds, deliberately moving into dry, hostile landscapes with no visible water in sight. Which raises a darker question. What did they know that we've completely forgotten? In 1997, researcher David Lewis Williams, excavating rock shelter sites across the Kalahari Desert, found something extraordinary embedded in the landscape itself, a system of knowledge passed through generations about where water hides, not on the surface, underground. Early humans learned to read the earth the way you read a face. Specific grasses that only grow above subterranean water tables. Particular trees, the shepherd's tree in southern Africa, with roots that drill 68 meters into the earth, that act as biological markers for hidden aquifers. Certain animal trails that always curve toward moisture, even when humans couldn't see why. They weren't guessing. They had built, over tens of thousands of years, an encyclopedia of environmental signals that modern science is only now beginning to decode. Here's what's really interesting. This wasn't intuition. It was accumulated data, transmitted across generations through story, ritual, and repetition. Your ancestors were running pattern recognition software in their heads that modern geologists now replicate with satellites, and they did it with nothing but observation. But here's what nobody talks about. When the landscape gave no signals, when the grass was wrong, the trees were absent, and the animals had vanished, early humans turned to their own bodies. In 2019, anthropologist Kalahari Komani San researcher Veronica Lamond documented a practice that dates back at least 30,000 years, reading the behavior of insects, specifically bees and certain species of flies, as real-time water detection systems. Bees never travel more than 5 kilometers from water, ever. A single bee flying in a straight line is not random. It is a compass. Early humans learned to track flight direction and triangulate the source. One bee gives you a direction. 2 bees crossing paths gives you a location. Your ancestors were doing navigation geometry with insects before the wheel existed. And it gets stranger. When all else failed, they dug. Not randomly. They dug in dry riverbeds, specifically at the outer curve of ancient bends, because they understood, without any formal education, that water follows centrifugal force underground long after the surface dries up. 30,000-year-old digging tools found at sites in the Namib Desert show wear patterns consistent with this exact technique. They knew. Somehow, they knew. This is why you still feel an almost irrational pull towards certain landscapes. Why a view of water, any water, immediately drops your heart rate. Why humans across every culture on Earth will pay more for a home with a river view than an identical home without one. Your brain doesn't know that you have a tap in your kitchen. It only knows that water means survival, and survival means calm, and calm means you can stop running. In 2011, environmental psychologist Roger Ulrich at Texas A&M published a landmark study showing that human stress hormones measurably drop within 90 seconds of viewing natural water, faster than any other visual stimulus. 90 seconds. Your nervous system is running a 50,000-year-old subroutine that equates the sight of water with the end of crisis. That tightness in your chest when you're thirsty and can't find anything to drink, that's not discomfort. That's an ancient alarm system screaming at maximum volume. The same alarm that kept your ancestors alive long enough to become you. Think about that for a moment. Somewhere out there, 50,000 years ago, a person was walking across cracked earth with no water left. Their throat was closing, their vision was tunneling, and they looked up and saw a single bee flying in a straight line toward the horizon. They followed it. They dug. They found water 3 meters underground. And because of that one decision, because of that accumulated knowledge, that pattern recognized, that bee tracked across a dying landscape, you exist. You are the descendant of every human who found water when there was no water to find. That knowledge lives in you still, quieter now, buried under convenience and infrastructure, but present. Every time you notice yourself drawn to water, every time rain sounds like relief before your brain has even processed the word, that's them. That's 50,000 years of survival whispering through your biology. If you want to keep exploring what else is hidden inside the human story, subscribe, because we're just getting started. Water was only the beginning. The tap is still running.